Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Arturo Castro about The Menu, which is streaming now on HBO Max and on Disney Plus in Canada and a few other countries as well. Welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. What an energetic introduction. I love. You do need your own blowhorn. You do know that, right?
Dude, I'm so excited to do this, man. You've been in so many amazing projects, specifically recently The Menu. Incredible. One of my favorite films of the year, easily.
Really?
I mean, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I have so many questions, and that's why I want to get, before we start, we're chatting, and it's like, let's get into the interview.
I've had it. I've had a Sagittarius.
I mean, you've worked in so many genres. I mean, it's interesting. You look at like Broad City, like we're talking about comedy, Narcos, we put David, which is just, there's nothing funny about that at all, right? Especially that character. You work on this, which is like a horror, has like the dark comedy kind of moments in there. What were some experiences for you as an actor on The Menu that you were like experiencing that you haven't experienced before compared to other projects?
Well, you have to remember, I play every project like it's a rom-com, and until I thought Narcos was a rom-com until I watched it live. I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, I thought this is a will they, won't they between me and the DA agent. But what did I experience on this one that I hadn't experienced with other ones? Well, first of all, the script, when it came through, I just I'd read something like it, but not with that pace, not that cleverly, not done. I mean, I think Mark Mylod, the director, did such a great job at capturing that tone, which is a tricky thing to capture, which is satire with horror elements, with tension at all times.
And something's wrong the whole time too, right?
Just that unnerving feeling, right? Like the dialogue really serves up this unnerving feeling of like these people are kind of fucking aloof and kind of assholes, and then suddenly when the comeuppance starts, like how does one react when the world is ending? Yeah. And that was I guess I've never been in a position as a character like that before.
Yeah, absolutely, no, for sure. And like I said, I want to talk about the movie, right? So like spoiler alert, I guess. You know what I mean? No, like it's tough always doing interviews because you don't want to walk on eggshells and everything. But I
think the trailer pretty much gave up the premise in a good way. Which
no, for sure. But there's some stuff in this movie that happened. If you don't know anything about it, it's like you're gonna be sweating for like half an hour.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's what my entire career is about: making people sweat.
Okay. So in this movie, there was obviously a menu with food, and I'm sure you've been asked this a lot of times.
That's it. I think that's the question of the interview. I think we can end right now. In the menu, there was obviously a menu.
There was a lot. I've seen the cast
went all the way to the other side, like not wanting to spoil anything at all. You're like, in this movie, there was a menu and there was food. It's like, you're right. There was no plot points given away.
But a lot of cast have been talking about this, Arturo. There was a lot. You had a chance as an actor to eat a lot of cool food during this filming process.
That's true. We worked with some amazing, amazing chefs. On set, to be honest, the food wasn't that really, one of the first dishes is like this seafood, like this like raw scallop situation, which they pre-cooked, but like after the 17th time of eating a scallop, like with some seaweed on it, I mean, it's not like that's delicious. But the benefit was that one of the amazing chefs that was helping Rafe and helping everybody in the kitchen by teaching them exactly how these high-end cuisines, when he had a restaurant in Savannah. I mean, there was two. There's Dominique, who's amazing, three Michelin star chef, and they're all super accomplished, but one of them in particular had a restaurant in Savannah, so periodically we'd just like go with the whole cast and like get these tasting menus and like just pig out, man. It was just the best thing. I am like, on set you can either find me napping when I'm not shooting
or eating
at the food table. It's just wow. So like, when somebody told me it was a movie about food and we're gonna hang out with chefs, I was like, you don't need to pay me, just pay me in food.
Part A, B question here. I mean, is it amazing to be part of a movie that has that label that it is kind of a horror movie in a lot of ways at a time like where horror, there's so much happening in the genre, and B, doing a movie that's like a horror movie that is like by no means a traditional horror movie in terms of what's put in this movie to scare people and certain things. You always think about gore, you always think about jump scares. There's a lot of scary things in this movie that tiptoe away from what I just said. So it's like, A, being part of horror, what's that like, knowing there's a big appetite for it? See what I did there?
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't read to me as a horror when I first read it. It just felt like a thriller, which is sort of again, because you hit on the head that we associate horror with like jump scares and lots of gore and et cetera. But then once we got into it, I realized like, oh, there's this if a horror film is something that deeply unnerves you, then this movie, of course, belongs to that category in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Because of how people were playing it. First of all, man, like when I heard what the cast was, I mean, I was freaking the fuck out, man. What do you want? Like, you're crazy? Like John Leguizamo, Ray Fiennes, Janet McTeer, like Anya, like all these people that I've admired, Judith Light, all these people that I admired my whole life. And I'll tell you a story. So I was because of how the movie goes, it all takes place in a restaurant. So even days where you didn't really have a scene or a speaking scene, even though we were all kind of talking every day, you still had to be there. So there's this one moment between Ray Fiennes and John Leguizamo, and John is doing this monologue, and Ray's kind of shutting him down. And at some point, they ran out of dialogue, and they started improving towards each other. And I was sitting there and watching these two go at it, and just and I was like, when would I ever have fucking thought that I'd have front row tickets to watching these giants?
Did they film any of it? Like, is there any kind of?
I filmed it on my iPhone. Okay. You can find it on my OnlyFans. There's a special, if you click on the link below, there's a lawsuit. Fox Searchlight is trying to get the footage. I'm not going to give it to you.
Oh my God. Can you imagine just like that? I always find that interesting too, where the improv thing interests me too, because you've also worked on a lot of Comedy Central projects where you've worked with a lot of people where I bet a lot of it is improv and everything. I feel like it's interesting with that because I feel like I've watched a lot of things and I'm like, a dinner table conversation, right? Like feels like it's improv, and then you like talk to those actors, and they're like, oh no, that was like just a script. Like we were going to script and vice versa, right?
They did give us a lot of freedom, and it's like I think people associate freedom. Improv with making something funny, but in the very Succession style of it all, that like the room felt a lot. We were all mic'd every day, so whatever tidbits of conversation we were picking up, right? Like we were just encouraged to just naturally go about a conversation and then find our way into the dialogue. So a lot of that sort of like before the dialogue and after the dialogue was just us as actors doing our best to sort of keep it natural and moving. And I was just so amazed that because the script was so well written to begin with, that we were also given that freedom. And then once you watch the movie, or as actors watch the movie, you're like, oh, they picked that moment and they had a little bit of this.
Exactly. It's like, what are they going to keep in? Absolutely.
They prepared a little menu, so to speak, with all the spices of dialogue that we'd added. How many food references do you think we can make?
Oh, we could make
a little dessert in every bite.
We can cook up a lot of them right now for sure. But I remember you went to that restaurant, Arturo, at the Moon, and you said it was really good, but you said the food was good, but you said there was zero atmosphere.
That's true. Ooh, wow. Sorry. I appreciate it.
You were not expecting that. That was the best part.
I love it. I was like, I went to a restaurant called The Moon. I was like, whoa. I was like, well, the 90s were a hell of a time, man.
Yeah, no, but zero. It was good food, zero atmosphere.
I was 8 years old back then.
You throw a chair in this movie a few times.
I'm just kind of a chair throwing guy, I guess.
What can you tell me about those scenes? I mean, was it kind of like, were you in the zone and you're just throwing the chair? Did you guys laugh? Because you're like, you're also yelling too, right? And everything. Like,
I feel my character more than most other characters tried to escape the most times, I guess. Like there was a sort of a will to like a desperation to get out of there as much as soon as possible. And that's another great thing about this movie and this cast, I guess. Like everybody, once they had their moment, would get like like everybody would clap for them, And the first moment I would do so when Janet McTeer had her moment, it's such an encouraging family type set. So I had my chair moment, and like once we were done with it, they all cut. Everybody's like, "Yeah, buddy." I have never thrown a chair like that before. But
a lot of takes to that, or was there just a few takes?
It takes.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty strong chair. So
yeah.
I want to tell the audience that was a massively hard glass to break. Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I was too weak. It just happened to be bulletproof glass. Okay.
Were there some times though on set with Rafe where it was like you maybe even like when you were not filming, where you were talking to him and you were just like a little kind of like, was there an intimidation factor a lot? Because
I mean, well, he's so disarming. Like once you get to know him, and like once you.
But that's a scary character. Like that's a terrifying
person.
Character.
But you gotta. I remember we had this wonderful. We went to drinks one night, just him and me, and he's like, "So Arturo, what was the first thing people know you from?" And I was like, "Oh, well, there was a show at Comedy Central called Broad City, and I think that was my break." And I was like, "How about you? What was your break?" He's like, "Oh yeah, Schindler's List." And I'm like, "God damn it! Like, come on, man!" Like, and I kept.
You could have countered with like, "I was also on Narcos."
Yeah, no, there's no beating that. Your first film being a lead in a Steven Spielberg opera, like one of the best movies in cinema. But also, like, he didn't fuck up a line once. Not once. You understand what pressure that is for like a character with much less lines, like mine or whatever. Like to be like, do not. He just set a really high standard, and I think. I learned a lot from watching him. It was truly like an acting class every day.
That's the best thing to hear. That it's like an acting class every day, getting to be on set with Rafe, which is amazing. So it's really exciting time too, because award season and everything, but also like people are able to see this film. Like it's streaming on HBO Max now, which is like the best part.
Yeah, it just came on the stream.
How many cheeseburgers do you think are going to be ordered in the next couple of weeks after watching this movie? Because I ordered a cheeseburger after watching the movie.
Oh, man. Well, there's a place in LA called Herb's Burgers, I think. And they put out a special, the menu burger. And it's just, I think it's like off the shelf. I mean, you walk out of there being like, gosh, it's just the best tasting thing. And in fact, when we premiered it at the Toronto Film Festival, they were handing out cheeseburgers outside, and I, not proud to say, but I hoarded a few. I hoarded. It was supposed to be one per person. Some people say I had 4. Who's counting?
Is it bold for me to say that? Is it bold for me to say that that's one of my favorite movie scenes ever in a movie ever?
So great, and also Anya, man, Anya,
she's so good in that scene.
She's so good in that. Nick was incredible, and I gotta tell you something else, man. Not to frame it this way, but it's such an honor to be in a film where 4 of the main characters are Latin. I mean, Anya's Argentinian, right? And then Amy, who's amazing, John Leguizamo, myself, and that we're all at the front of the house. We're all the patrons. There was nothing about this movie that was stereotypical in the way they portrayed people of color. It was just everybody gets to be an asshole, no matter what race or racial background you're from, right? And that was it just never happens that I get to be with a bunch of other leads of my same culture, and that nobody makes a big deal out of it. Like it doesn't have anything to do with the story. We just happen to be Latin, And so that was just, it was just really heartening coming into set and seeing faces of all varieties.
Absolutely. No, that's so great that you said that. And sorry, I'm mesmerized by your Alternatino poster.
I know it's hard to see, bro. And I realized I just came back from
it was.
I got my suitcase back there. I got Alternatino back there.
This is a big question, and this has to do with Broad City, Alternatino. I mean, is comedy the hardest genre to work in as an actor and storyteller these days, in your opinion?
I mean, it depends, but I mean, listen. Drama is definitely hard, having a real moment, because it's hard because there's no immediate gratification of like, oh, people are laughing, this is working, right? Yeah. But man, if you're ever on a comedy set and a joke doesn't land or people don't laugh, that is fucking hell on earth. So I do feel in a way that comedy can be harder. And I don't know, man, because again, you have movies like Tar or like what Rafe was doing in this movie. Like that's
Yeah.
incredibly hard to pull off.
Yeah.
Going to real moments of vulnerability is hard to pull off. In comedy, it's just a rhythm thing, right? You got to have your timing on point, and it's got to work, and it's got to be. And so I don't know which is harder, but I got to tell you that like both need to be taken way more seriously than people think.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
Comedies and they're like, oh my god, they're having so much fun, and we are sure people are laughing, but it's also nerve-wracking, man.
I feel like comedy though has the upper hand in my opinion versus drama in terms of being a difficult genre to kind of create and write, especially from the writers. Like some of these, like you look at some of my favorite comedy shows of all time, and like it's just like the writers are just like geniuses to be able to have so many jokes consistently.
The writers, man, on both seasons, I was just like, I'd never been in a writer's room before for comedy, and it was an everyday awe moment of like, how the fuck do you come up with this many zingers? Like, how are you this funny, this inherently funny? And so I just have the most admiration for comedy writers, and in fact, Seth Rice and Will Tracy that co-wrote the Menu, they're comedy writers, and you can feel it in the rhythm, you can feel it in the pace, and I feel like comedy writers, comedy people, as we've seen many times before, Adam McKay and Jordan Peele, they have a sense for drama too. There's a sense of being able to switch genres.
Yeah,
that it comes very easy to them.
I know, absolutely. I just feel like there's like different things make different people laugh, right? Like there might be a joke that certain people are like, well, that's hilarious. Then other people are just like, it's not my type of humor. Like I feel like that's the tricky thing. You know what I mean? I love it, man. I love seeing it. I love seeing the genre bending too. I mean, you can make an argument that The Menu is a genre bending movie.
That's right, man. We're just out here bending genres and making movies. No, yeah, it was. I mean, I guess it just had elements of a lot of different movies that we really admired.
Yeah.
And again, Mark Mylod, I'd never worked with a director quite like that, which like even in the stressful moments, because we had to get a lot done and we had to shoot a lot in a contained space. And every morning he would come and sort of walk us through the day and have this sense of humor about it and a kindness to it and just like a sharpness to knowing what the scene needed, but they wouldn't do it as a tyrant. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like it was just this sense of this sense of play about him that was very not childlike in an immature way, but just sort of like that. You can tell somebody when they're enjoying their job, and it was infectious.
No, absolutely. Well, it's one of the best. It's one of my favorite movies, man. Like I'm telling you, it's going to be on rotations for a while, and it's so great that people get to watch it now. HBO Max in other countries like Canada, Disney Plus. Arturo, thank you so much for coming on Popternative. It was so great chatting with you.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Arturo Castro on Instagram, right? Is that where they could keep updated with everything?
That's right. Arturo Castro P.
Yeah,
because
awesome.
It was the next letter I could find.
Absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative. YouTube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. The Menu streaming now on HBO Max. Until next time, it's Arturo Castro and Petey Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.